Senator.
Pradeep Phillip, partner and head of Deloitte Access Economics.
Okay, thanks very much. Thank you for being there. I wanted to ask you about your report you did for CBUS. And so you noted in your report that there was discretionary expenditure which does not align with the best financial interest duty. I wondered if, as part of that, you looked at the $387,000 40th birthday party that CBUS held?
Senator, thank you. The expenditure that we reviewed was specified by APRA. There were 9 expenditures that were outlined in their scope to us. So our 9 items did not include the expenditure that you referred to, Senator.
Okay, so you didn't look at that. Were you aware of that birthday party expenditure?
We weren't at the time of our review, Senator, no. And nor was it within the scope of our work.
But hang on, I thought you looked at the compliance mechanism internally, effectively the internal controls around how CBUS spends money.
That's correct, Senator, in respect to 9 specific payments. And if I can, we've outlined those 9 payments in the appendix to our report. Pradeep will just get that now. Appendix D, Senator.
So that's good. I didn't realise that. So you looked at 9 particular payments. You didn't necessarily look at everything.
No, we didn't. Obviously, the systems and processes that we looked at for the 9 payments might also apply in respect to other expenditures, but our review was limited to reviewing those 9 items.
Okay. And as part of that, I think I'm right in saying that you looked at the CFMEU Grand Final Day breakfast?
No, I don't believe we have. There were 6 partnership agreements that we reviewed. Again, it outlined at Appendix D. And there were 3 other items, 2 in relation to rental of premises, and then a separate one in relation to a proposal for an investment in a growth research program.
Okay, I think it did look at the grand final breakfast. Just trying to find the page. So page 71 talks about the reservation of tables, 2 tables of 10 at the CFMEU grand final breakfast. So I guess my question is, how would something like that fit into the best financial interest duty? Or can it not fit into the best financial interest duty?
Well, Senator, perhaps we can answer the question in a more general sense that there may be a broad view by CBUS or superannuation funds that having a presence and an attendance at certain events enhances their profile, enhances their connection with the membership base, would be one response. But again, we didn't I don't recall specifically looking at that item.
That's okay. It's a big report. So you said on page 62 that there are no metrics outlined in the partnership proposal as to how to assess member outcome. So effectively, you're saying there that CBUS was spending money on partnership agreements with no way of measuring any benefit to the members. Is that right?
Some partnership agreements did have certain metrics applied to it, Senator, but they weren't consistent across the partnership agreements. And in some respects, we felt that the metrics could be further enhanced to be more micro, to be able to more definitively conclude that they were in members' interests.
You said on page 73 that commentary from a CBUS coordinator completing a CFMEU assessment did not include evidence that the benefit under the partnership agreement and benefit schedule had been provided. So it sounds like the CFMEU agreements were not particularly robust in terms of providing any member outcome.
There were gaps that we felt could be enhanced, Senator.
Okay. Do you think that, did you meet with the CFMEU as part of that process?
We met with representatives. We interviewed the directors on the board, Senator, or the trustees, which included 3 CFMEU members.
It did. So you did meet with them. So, I mean, given that the CBUS fund was giving millions of dollars to the CFMEU each year under these various agreements, I guess looking at that and how they were governed was a core part of your report. So when I look at your report, it seems to tell me that they were just giving away money without properly measuring it.
Well, we certainly identified a number of recommendations in respect to how those arrangements were reviewed and approved. And to that extent, Senator, certainly there is room for uplift.
Who signs off on partnership agreements at CBUS?
There's a series of sign-offs that are established by CBUS, so all the way through ultimately to a subcommittee of the board, Senator. And again, that depends on the delegation and the amounts of each partnership agreement.
Did you meet with Mr. Swan as part of this investigation?
We did interview the chair, yes, Senator.
Does he sign off on any of the agreements?
No, not individually, Senator.
Is he briefed on the CFMEU overlay and all the money that they are paid through these partnership agreements that don't seem to have any measurement or metrics?
In terms of the governance structures that are in place, Senator, there is no explicit list that goes to the full board of each individual partnership agreement. And in fact, one of our recommendations, Senator, was that there was greater transparency provided to the full board. But there's no question that each of the board members were generally aware of the partnership agreements.
So Mr. Swan and the other directors knew that there was money going to the CFMEU. Is that right?
Yes.
Yeah. But you've recommended that there needs to be some governance renovations if that is to continue. I mean, I think as it stands, I don't think they're doing anything, the CFMEU, because of the media's reporting. Look, I just wanted to check with you. Did you meet with Dr. Edwards, who's the chair of the Risk Committee?
Senator, he was one of the board members we interviewed as part of this process.
He was. Okay. Yeah. And as part of this review, did you look at the competency of the board?
Well, we did, as part of the review, one of the aspects was to consider each of the trustees and whether they met the fit and proper requirements of the Act. Yes.
And did you find that the 3 CFMEU trustees were fit and proper?
Senator, we did include that, in our opinion, they were fit and proper, yes.
Okay. And so what about the competency of the board to deal with these massive risk issues? Do you think they have the right personnel to be able to right the ship?
Yeah, in our opinion, the skills across the 14 members were appropriate. And that's how we've concluded, Senator.
Okay. And so your main recommendation then is that there should be a significant uplift in how partnership agreements are concluded and how they are managed.
Yeah, certainly in terms of documentation to support the expenditure in the first instance, and then also annual assessments, particularly if they are being renewed. Yes, there are a number of recommendations we made across
Just finally, I mean, I understand it's a difficult task because you've been asked by CBUS, which is owned by CFMEU, to do this review. But I mean, do you think that CFMEU is an appropriate party to be owning 21% of CBUS and then putting 3 members onto its board?
Well, Senator, I appreciate the question, but clearly from our perspective, we're going to go back to the scope of our work, which was to assess each of the trustees as to whether they were fit and proper. And based on our work, in our opinion, they met those requirements.
So it wasn't a full internal audit. It was a targeted control audit, effectively.
Yes, that's correct. It wasn't a holistic governance review. That's right.
Yeah, because if I was, I used to be an internal auditor. If I was doing an internal audit, I would have come up and said, well, it's a massive risk to be in business with a criminal, corrupt organisation that is associating with bikies and other criminal overlords, and that wouldn't be an appropriate party to be owning a super fund, let alone putting 3 people onto its board.
Senator, we note the allegations that are in place and the investigations underway. Our focus was on the 3 individuals that had been nominated by the administrator of CFMEU.
Senator Walsh.
Thank you. I just note that I do have a few questions, Chair, so I appreciate the equal time. So just to confirm, you did conduct a report into CBUS's governance in the terms that you were given, and it's correct that your review found that the new CBUS board representatives nominated by the CFMEU do meet the fit and proper purpose test. That's correct, isn't it?
That is correct.
And in relation to the best financial interests duty and union partnerships, I just wanted to explore that a little bit more. I read the report, read it with interest. Your review made important recommendations, which I understand have been accepted, into the design and operation of how documentation and reporting is done in relation to the best financial interest duty requirements. You said that your recommendations for better governance, which are very important, do not, and I quote, question intent or whether ultimately decisions are in the best financial interests of members or not. It's just that the documentation systems and processes do not allow for that decision to be concluded clearly. And then in relation to the CFMEU partnership agreement, you said, and I quote, the directors and executives interviewed had a shared understanding that the benefits provided under the partnership agreements were to enhance advocacy for CBUS's brand, thereby increasing access to members and leading to greater member acquisition and retention for CBUS. And you went on to say that better documentation could make those benefits more explicit. So it's correct, I think, that you made no findings about whether union partnership agreements do or do not meet the best financial interest duty at CBUS. Is that right?
Yes, that's right, Senator. Because of the findings in relation to systems, processes and documentation, we were not able to draw a definitive view.
Yeah. So you made no conclusions about whether the union partnership agreements do or do not meet the best financial interest duty, because, as you say, the documentation around those benefits needs to be better specified. Going to the equal representation model, you said that your review essentially did not aim to make a judgment on that model, and I quote, there is no one size fits all when it comes to good board governance and composition. You did expand on the benefits of the model in the area of what you describe in your report as member voice. Can you explain to the committee how the equal representation model can promote that member voice that can be beneficial in board decision making? I note that you went to that in your report.
Yes, Senator, having a representative body and having members on the trustee board who interact daily with those members, there is the capacity, therefore, to bring into the board environment concerns, perspectives, expectations by the member group that could be additive to board deliberations.
Okay, thank you. And I'll just shift in the time that I have remaining, if I can, to Dr. Phillip. Dr. Phillip, are you able to speak to some of the research that Deloitte has done in relation to the question of super for housing, which this inquiry has also investigated?
Senator, I had not prepared my research into that ahead of this committee hearing.
I'll just ask the question and see if you can comment, and that's okay if
Sure.
you're not the right person. But you did do a report in relation to superannuation for housing. I think, if I'm right, it was commissioned by SMC. Is that right? And in your report, you talk about the ability for funds to be able to, manage their investments and the difficulty of early release for that, particularly in relation to funds being able to invest with certainty in long-term illiquid assets. Are you able to speak briefly to the risks of sort of widespread early release of super for the ability of funds to have certainty in their investments and therefore certainty of returns to members?
Senator, I'm not in a position to reflect on the report that you referenced. The only thing through the conduct of this work I would note is that it is a fact of the nature of Australia's super industry that it has had the ability to invest in long-term assets, including illiquid assets. But beyond that, I can't really comment.
Okay, and just finally from me, Deloitte has previously conducted economic modelling into the costs of super for housing and the Coalition's policy in relation to that. One of the questions there is the potential impact on taxpayers and the federal budget of needing to stump up, to use the technical term, additional funds for the aged pension should people's super balances be impacted. I think your research found that withdrawals of up to $50,000 to buy a home could cost taxpayers and the government up to $2.5 billion a year by the end of the decade due to increased pension costs. Are you able to comment on the likely impact on a federal budget of a super for housing policy?
Senator, I can't make comment on the specific question that you've raised, except to note that the superannuation system was originally brought in for the purposes of providing for retirement and to take the pressure off the budget, but there are always policy changes that can be made and have been made. The impact of that, I haven't come to this committee prepared to be able to make an assessment.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
No, thank you, Deputy Chair. Thanks to Deloitte for being there today. And I now